Hello, my name is Dean Contover, and this is Current Buzz. Thank you for watching today. Today we have David Byers. I have to read this. He's a supervisory park ranger at Lowell National Historical Park in downtown Lowell. We have Ellen Anstey. She's a manager for administration and engagement at the Songus Industrial History Center. Thank you for coming, both of you. We're going to talk about the Lowell Quarter, which is right here. But I want to talk about the national park first, David. So a lot of people may not know there's a national park in downtown Lowell, and you want them to come on your boat ride in the Merrimack River, etc. So why don't you pontificate on that for a few seconds and explain what the national park
Thank you for inviting us. Great to be here, and great to be here to talk about one of our favorite topics, which is the National Historical Park. And as you said, many people locally may not be aware that they have a hometown national park unit right here in Lowell.
Right.
Lowell National Historical Park was established in 1978, and it was established with a couple of ideas in mind. They wanted to tell the story of the American Industrial Revolution and its legacies in Lowell. Lowell was the first large-scale industrial planned city in the country, and the textile mills that get started here really helped shape a lot of what industrial America would become.
Right.
We like to think of Lowell as the cradle of the American Industrial Revolution, and that's the story that we tell. That story has a couple of elements. One of the very important elements is the human story. There are workers that are coming to Lowell. First, Lowell's famous mill girls.
Well, let's start. Lowell was made up of Tewksbury, Chelmsford, and Drake.
A lot of different towns, right? And in fact, the whole area that later would become the core of Lowell was East Chelmsford, right? So part of the town of Chelmsford.
Right.
And the area that would become Lowell, mostly farmland, about 200 people lived there. There is a canal that had run through it. It started in the 1790s, mostly to get logs around the Pawtucket Falls. In the 1820s, some Boston businessmen realized they could use that canal for something else.
Right.
They had started to develop mill buildings in Waltham, Massachusetts, but they wanted to expand on a much larger scale, and they would use that canal system and the 32-foot drop on the Merrimack River to build canals through the city, build mills alongside, and use that water power to drive those textile mills. So they'd begin expanding. By 1826, Lowell had decided it was enough of its own thing that it ought to separate, and it was established as a town and then a city in 1836. It's Massachusetts' third city there.
Do you know
and then we picked up pieces of other towns.
Do you know, I should have brought it, but the first girl who was born, Sarah Parker, there's a monument of her on Pine Street in Lowell. She was the first girl that was born, and I think it was 1853 that she was born.
Yeah.
But I was doing some research, and I'll tell you more about it after the show.
The first male born was named. His last name was Lincoln, and they named him Lowell Lincoln.
Wow.
He was born in 1826.
Okay.
Goes out to Minnesota, establishes a training school out there.
Oh,
so
okay.
A lot of great Lowell connections throughout the country.
Let me ask Ellen, what is the Songus Industrial Historical Center?
Sure. So the Songus Industrial History Center, as the national park was settling in, they determined they needed to do education programs. So they partnered with UMass Lowell, with the College of Education at UMass Lowell, and formed the Songus Industrial History Center. So we see about 40,000 school children a year from all over New England and beyond. Yesterday we had groups in from Los Angeles.
Wow.
So we have all different hands-on workshops that they do, and we tour the different resources of Lowell National Historical Park to really immerse students in the history of Lowell and the Industrial Revolution. We do teacher workshops as well, and in the summertime we have summer day camps.
And what about during school break? Don't you have special programs for children, so people from Chelmsford or from Westford or for other towns like Tingsboro, Drake?
Yep. So during the school vacation weeks in February and April, we partner up with the National Park and a lot of other partners throughout the city. And it's Lowell Kids Week and April Playcation Week. So there's all different hands-on activities at different sites throughout the city, including ours.
We talked about, just earlier when you came in, we talked about the coin. This is a quarter. You can't see it, but it's all right. You don't have to zoom in. It says Lowell on the top of it, and it was your idea to start this off because of the America the Beautiful quarters in 2006, and you guys came up with the idea, and that's why I have you in.
Right, right.
So
right, yeah.
who wants to pontificate?
Well,
on
and
that?
Ellen's been a part of this process
right.
for a long time.
All
This
right.
is a process that starts more than 10 years ago.
More than 10 years ago. So
Wow.
as there was the state quarter system, and as that was ending, Congress decided to do a whole new series of quarters, the America the Beautiful Quarter series. And there was one federal site from each state chosen to have a quarter.
Federal site.
Federal site in each state and territory, so there'll be 56 in this series of quarters. So back in 2008, 2009, the U.S. Mint contacted the governors of each state and said, decide how you want to determine which federal site. So the governor of Massachusetts, their staff put out a site and encouraged people to vote. So I found out about this. I can't remember how I found out about it, but I encouraged everyone I knew at the time, vote for Lowell National Historical Park to be on the quarter.
Right.
And we won.
Yeah, I like the idea in regards to the fishermen in Gloucester. That was the #1 choice.
Right,
Explain
right.
what happened.
So with the public voting, Gloucester's Fisherman Memorial was the top vote getter, but because it's a city monument and not a federal site, Lowell National Historical
why I
Park
said
got the
federal
next,
site.
right. Then
Yeah.
we had the next highest votes, so we got selected.
Over the
by-
U.S. Constitution? I love that
over,
one.
Right, over lots of other federal
Yeah,
sites
a lot
throughout
of great
Massachusetts.
competition, a lot of great parks with great stories to tell, and so we're just very proud to represent Massachusetts
Right,
and
okay.
having been the site chosen.
So tell the procedure. #1, once Lowell was picked, how did that, yeah, I know you have to get the engraver and.
Yep.
Yeah,
So,
that type.
so we worked very closely with the United States Mint. So the Mint releases 5 of these quarters every year. So we had to wait in line, and they're released in the order that each of these sites became federal sites. So Lowell National Historical Park, established in 1978, is on the later end of this coin series. So we're number 46 in this coin series. So once we knew we were chosen in 2009, we had to wait quite a while. Finally, in about 2016, they contacted the national park to start the process. And the process that we started with was sending them lots of materials about Lowell, lots of photographs, lots of engravings, lots of maps, lots of just general history of Lowell. And the Mint shares that with their artists. They have artists in an artistic infusion program.
I see.
So once their artists gathered all this history materials and they went and they decided to design what they thought were the most important elements of Lowell. We gave them some guidance. We really wanted it to
Right.
focus on the mill girl era of Lowell's history because that's very important. We wanted technology to be represented. We wanted lots of things to be in there. And it's a small space, the quarter, but they really did a nice job with coming up with 18 different designs to represent
Yeah,
Lowell.
let's see if we can zoom in on the different designs that were done. And then you can explain, David, the quarter and what it means, so people will finally look at the Lowell quarter. I don't know if you can see, but these are the different designs. Hold on just a minute. I have another one. This is another one, so you can look at the different designs. I know.
And with all of those designs, from those designs put together by the artists, then there's a procedure of winnowing it down to what is the design that's chosen. There are a couple of steps to that. The Citizens Coinage Advisory Council, a national advisory body for coin collectors and the people that work the technical side of minting the coins, get together and talk about the different designs. Ellen and I were fortunate enough to be in Washington, D.C. when they were convening to talk about the different designs, got to weigh in with Lowell's choice and what most interested us about some of the designs. And then they select one of the designs that they're going to recommend. The Commission for the Fine Arts also has their recommendation. The Governor of the Commonwealth has his recommendation. The National Park Service Director
typical of
weighs in.
government, isn't it?
Indeed it is. And then ultimately, with all of that input taken together, the Secretary of the Treasury ultimately makes the decision about which design would be selected.
I see.
And that was revealed in August of this past year, August of 2018, in Philadelphia at the World's Fair of Money.
World's Fair of Money. So I had the opportunity to visit Philadelphia as they unveiled the design, and it was a very nice moment. The director of the United States Mint was there, and they really just took off the curtain, and there's our design. So I was able to videotape it for the national park and everybody
World's
back in
Fair
Lowell.
of money.
Yes.
Did they give any money out?
They don't, but they had a huge exhibit hall with all kinds of coin collectors,
Wow.
selling all different coins and money. It was very
Mostly
impressive.
American coins, or were they foreign coins also? Or?
They had a variety of
Did they?
coins,
Oh, that's
absolutely. And there was a great display by the United States Mint, including our design.
Yeah, this is the proof set. A proof set is made up of the coins. I used to collect proof sets, so I'm pretty familiar with it. It has the dime, the nickel, the penny, the $50, and the quarter. But they're 5 quarters. So what happens is this is the front, and this is the back of the quarters, and the little quarter is in the back of it.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, the reverse, as
Yeah.
the mint says.
And it's double stamped. I'm sorry.
Right. And those 5 quarters there represent the 5 different federal sites that are honored this year in 2019. We were the first of this year. The quarter came out in February for Lowell National Historical Park, celebrated with great fanfare at the Lowell Memorial Auditorium. And then the next quarters that are in the series, the next quarter was launched just a couple of days ago, and that was at American Memorial National Historical Park, part of the Northern Marianas Islands. And then a week from now, the quarter celebrating Guam and the War in the Pacific National Historical Park will be inaugurated as well. So both of those will flow into circulation. Later in this year, San Antonio Missions in Texas, and then the Frank Church River of No Return Wilderness up in Idaho. So those are the quarters for this year. As Ellen mentioned, we are the 46th in the series of quarters. So there's just one more year and a little bit to go for this series of quarters.
You know, what I was surprised is there's a lot of people who follow these quarters.
Right.
It was surprising that they go from
site to site, they go to all of the events.
They have this
there.
money, and they go to the events. They collect paraphernalia. They collect the coins and stamps and all that stuff.
Right.
Is this a business, or is this?
Well, it is a pretty big business, and because the reason it exists is partly because it is a big business. The United States Mint in 1999, when they're coming up with the state quarter idea, they realized there are a lot of collectors that take the quarters out of circulation and put them in their collections. The quarters cost about 11 cents a piece to mint, and so every quarter taken out of circulation actually earns the mint 14 cents.
Well,
and so
that's what they do with stamps too.
Right,
like the Elvis
exactly.
Presley stamp.
Yeah. So this is great for collectors, great for telling the story, our historical stories for our states and then our federal lands, but also great. It makes great financial sense.
Right.
So all of that put together is what inspired them to come up with another series, the National Park, the America the Beautiful quarter series that highlights many national parks and other federal lands.
I have all the state sets, proof sets. So
yeah, and they're beautiful. They're beautiful pieces of art in addition to being interesting connections with our history.
You can go online at U.S. Mint. You can order the proof sets. You can order coins, etc. And this is a roll of coins, $10 for quarters. But a lot of people put them away in their safes. But you should use them, really.
Right. Get them out there into circulation.
Yeah.
Right.
So there will be 328 million of the Lowell quarters out in circulation.
How many?
So they'll be out there, 328 million.
All over the country.
All over the country. We've had reports from across the country. People, not soon after the quarter was launched, people from, I think, Colorado said, hey, look what I got in change. It's the Lowell quarter.
It's good.
And I think one of the great and powerful pieces of this is if you reach into your pocket and look at the quarters that you have just randomly, you'll find quarters that are from last year, from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, still around. And our hope is that 50 years from now, people will be digging into their pockets somewhere across the country, and they'll discover Lowell and Lowell National Historical Park and want to know more about that place.
And if you go downtown Lowell, you have these
right.
for
So that's
sale.
the set that we have for sale.
Can you zoom on this, Tom?
So that is at our visitor center, but also at the Boot Cotton Mills Museum.
Oh, okay.
We have our park stores run by a company called Eastern National that helps us out with selling merchandise that connects people to their visit to the park, and that set is available in both of those
Now,
places.
I want you to explain the design. You have it here, so explain the design for people who may not know the Lowell quarter.
What is on here?
Yeah, what is on
and we are very pleased with the design selection. This is indeed the one that the park recommended of all those 18 designs, and we are very pleased with this choice. Okay. And that is because it gets a lot into a very compact area. As I mentioned earlier, the park is about the human story of work and working in the mills, and here, just front and center, there is a mill worker. Here is somebody from about the turn of the 20th century.
Okay.
She may represent many of the immigrant groups that come here to work in Lowell. That's another important story that we tell.
What about the farm girls from?
Right, so, and that represents an earlier time period. Most of the mill girls are coming down in the 1820s, 30s, 40s.
Wow.
You start to see fewer and fewer of them, more immigrants coming and working the mills versus the Irish, French Canadians, Poles, Portuguese. That's more the later part of the 19th
Greeks.
century. And the Greeks, yeah, very
Can't
important
forget them.
in the 1870s and in the 1880s there.
Right.
So she stands in to really represent all of the workers there. And very important that she's a female worker too.
Right. I see
Women
she
in
has
work is a very important
I see she
part.
has her hair up.
She does, and in an early 20th century style, and you certainly wouldn't want the hair, getting near the machinery.
Mills, yeah, in the
exactly.
machinery, right.
And speaking of machinery, that's another very important and central element, and that is the power loom. This very large bobbin battery that's here, you can see today in the Boot Cotton Mills Museum. We have 88 looms that are running. You can go there and get a feel for the
That's the
experience
Songa
of
Center,
working.
right?
That's just beneath the Songa Center. It's the same building,
okay.
there, right? And the Songa Center students always go through the weave room and get that experience because it's such an unusual and unique experience to be in a place where you can get the feel of working in one of these.
Wasn't the weave room in some movie?
The weave room has shown up in lots of different videos and documentaries and other kinds of places. And that's because you really can't, you can find other places where there is a machine running, but not a place where you have a whole room full of machines running at the same time, with the sound, with the vibration, with the period costume weavers that are recreating the same work.
Now, you've been to where all the machines are running, right?
Yes, yes.
And these poor girls were in there without any hearing devices to cover their ears.
Yep.
Day in and day out.
Absolutely. And certainly hearing loss becomes a problem. Especially the mill girls early on are mostly working for a couple of years and then finishing up going back home to northern New England. It's later in the 19th century when more immigrants are working there that they are spending a lifetime in the mills. And now environmental problems like the extreme sound in there causing hearing loss creep in.
Wow,
you have people starting to have respiratory problems because of the cotton lint and the dust in the air.
I see.
And
Is that called a cotton lung? Is that what they call
Weaver's
cotton
lung, brown lung? Doctors would call it bisonosis. But basically the fibers get into your lungs and there isn't a way for you to get rid of them. And people lose their capacity.
Especially in the wintertime when the windows are closed.
Well, right, yes.
So why don't you could...
So the machinery that's here really highlights the idea of technology and innovation, how important that is to the mill's story. And then in the background, the last major element is the window looking out onto the courtyard of the Boot Cotton Mills. And we know this is specifically the Boot Cotton Mills because this is the clock tower that you can see today.
Okay.
And also at the very top is the weather vane.
Where is the Boot Cotton Mills for people who may not
Boot Cotton Mills is right along the Merrimack River. It's at John Street and French Street.
Okay.
It
in
is
that neighborhood.
Right, exactly. So not very far from the Songus Arena and near Bridge Street, the bridge that crosses over there. There are a lot of great mill complexes that are surviving in Lowell, some that didn't, but the Boot Mills is one of the best preserved complexes that still is in existence.
I see, okay.
Which is one of the reasons that we're there, and that's why our museum is there.
I see.
And here, the unique weather vane at the top is actually a shuttle. That's one of these. This is the piece of equipment that goes back and forth in the looms, and a very unique sort of crowning piece of the mill complex.
Look, I have you here to explain all these things. I mean,
so by having this here,
now is there a bell in the bell tower, or is
there is a bell?
Oh, there is a bell.
And Lowell was a city of bells, ruled by the bells. There's a pretty rigid schedule that the bells ring, and everybody gets up in the morning, and it rings again, and you need to be at work, and it will ring again to ring you out for breakfast. It is conditioning, and that's an important part of our story because with the factory city that's created here, it really changes the way people think about time. If you're working on the farms, you have the seasons and the day and the night, and when the sun comes up, that's when your workday starts. Here now there's a new idea about time, that it's a commodity and that it's very rigid and there's a schedule and you need to be someplace at a certain time. And it's a very different way of thinking about time. We think, oh, we have watches, we have phones, we check time all the time. That's not how it was necessarily in the 18th and early part of the 19th century. And what changes that is industrial America. And so it was great to see that part of the story is at least acknowledged there.
I see a chimney.
Right, and that speaks also to changing technology. Lowell was run by water power primarily early on, using that fall of the Merrimack River. But later in the 19th century, many of the mills switch over to steam power. Any place you see a smokestack in Lowell, at the base of it was a powerhouse with a steam engine. And so that's what a lot of the boot mill shifted into, is being operated by steam engines.
And those buildings to the right of the coin right here?
Right, so that's down at the end of the courtyard, an additional set of the mill buildings that were built later. The original mill just had 4 freestanding buildings, but later it would be built into this massive complex enclosing this courtyard. One of the other great stories that this acknowledges too is the park's role in helping to preserve the city of Lowell and all of the cityscapes that are there with all of these mill buildings.
Right.
The park, one of its charges is to help revitalize the city, and part of the way that the park has gone about doing that is working with developers, working with government agencies to make sure that these mill buildings are preserved and reused in sustainable ways, which many of them are today as housing, residential places, office spaces, numerous other uses.
I have a question. There's PH initials there and JI. Are you familiar with that? Or can you explain that?
Yeah, we could.
Good. Go ahead.
Sure. So the JI is the artist who did the original design.
Phoebe.
It's Joel Isowitz.
Oh, okay.
And then the PH is Phoebe Hempel.
Hempel.
Yep.
Yep.
And she's works for the Mint as the engraver. So she took Joel's design and engraved it so that it could be made into coins.
Oh, cool. That's cool. Yeah, so pick up your local quarters. I don't know if they still have them at the local banks.
There may be some left. They had them for quite a while, but very popular, as you can imagine.
I want to show this. Can you? This is what?
So that is the shadow box that was presented by the United States Mint to our superintendent, Celeste Bernardo, at the inaugural event at the quarter launch there, and that will be displayed proudly somewhere in the park.
Okay.
As well as we have a proclamation from the governor recognizing the day of the launch as Quarter Day in the Classroom. One of the important reasons for that is that lesson plans were developed as part of the quarter, so that teachers can use the quarter and the stories that it suggests to help teach students across the country about Lowell and the Industrial Revolution and the other stories of the park.
Ellen, I have 2 minutes.
Sure.
In regards to the ceremony, explain the ceremony in 2 minutes. I know we don't have.
Sure. So
time flies when you're having fun.
right. So we were able to invite over 1,400 Lowell 4th graders from Lowell Public Schools, a couple of private schools, to come to the event. Every 4th grader in Lowell received a quarter from the United States
Yeah, I know.
Mint.
I was really impressed with that.
So we
yeah.
were able to bring
And
them all in.
a little case too.
Yes.
So they could put it in their drawer wherever they
Yep.
and
So
save it. Yeah.
At the Lowell Memorial Auditorium, we also had the Lowell High School Band, the Lowell High School Color Guard, the Lowell High School Chorus. So it was really a nice community event
Right.
that brought a lot of people together. We had a lot of members from the general public. We filled up the auditorium, which was very special.
It was packed. Yeah, and I think the gentleman from the Mint was impressed with the display.
So
I forgot his name, but he was.
that was
up-
Mark
Mark
Landry.
Landry, he's the
Mark Landry,
associate
yeah.
director of
And he had a connection to Lowell. His grandfather was from Lowell originally, or something like that. And it was, I think, his first time to Lowell. I think.
Right, he hadn't
yeah.
been here before.
Yeah, so it
you
was,
can always find a connection to Lowell with,
yeah, I know.
wherever you talk.
I don't know whether that's bad or good, but I mean, yeah. So you
Sometimes
had
both.
Nikki Songus was there,
Yes.
the former congresswoman. She was involved in this.
Yep, we had a number of women leaders throughout Lowell speak for us to introduce each part of the program. So that made it extra special because we're representing a woman worker on the quarter, so we had women leaders in Lowell.
Yeah, I was really happy to see Lowell High School band there, and the chorus was there.
Yes.
And that was really unexpected. What impressed you? I've got a minute. What impressed you about the event?
The most impressive part of the ceremony was when we said the Pledge of Allegiance, and for all those 4th graders to say it with such emphasis and really loudly and clearly and proudly in perfect unison. Yes, so that made it really special, and I hope all those students really remember the event.
I hope so too.
And that's
Do
what
you?
I think that's a moment that I remember as well. And I think I remember thinking that all of the students there will remember this experience.
We hope.
And when they find that quarter somewhere in
Yeah.
their pocket years from now, they will remember that they were there on the day that it was inaugurated.
David, thank you for coming. Ellen, thank you
Thank
for coming.
you.
I
All right.
appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Dave.
You know,
Appreciate the opportunity to talk about the quarter.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad that